A poor girl gave shelter to a man and his daughter for one night, not knowing. He was a millionaire cowboy. The wind howled across the dry land like a lonely cry. Dust rose from the ground and danced in the air, as if the earth itself was restless. On the far edge of a small, forgotten town stood a weak wooden cabin. It looked old and tired, just like the life of the girl who lived inside it. Her name was Eliza May. Eliza was not rich. In fact, she barely had enough to live. Her clothes were simple, her shoes were worn, and her meals were often small. But even with so little, she carried a quiet strength in her heart. She had learned to survive on her own after losing her parents many years ago. Life had not been kind to her, but she refused to give up. That evening, dark clouds filled the sky. A strong storm was coming. Eliza stood near the window of her cabin, watching the wind shake the trees. She quickly moved around the room, closing the loose shutters and placing an old chair against the door to keep it from swinging open. "Not tonight," she whispered softly. "Please, not tonight." The storm grew louder. Thunder rolled across the sky and lightning flashed like bright cracks in the darkness. Rain began to fall, heavy and cold, hitting the roof like falling stones. Eliza sat down near her small table. A weak candle flickered in front of her. She had only a little bread left and a cup of water. It would have to be enough for the night. Just as she lifted the bread to eat, she heard something. A knock. At first, she froze. No one ever came this far. And no one would come out in a storm like this unless something was wrong. The knock came again, louder this time. Eliza slowly stood up. Her heart began to beat faster. She walked toward the door, her steps careful and quiet. "Who's there?" she called out. For a moment, there was no answer, only the sound of the rain. Then a tired voice spoke from outside. "Please. We need help." Eliza hesitated. She had learned not to trust strangers easily. The world was not always safe, especially for someone like her, but something in the man's voice felt real and desperate. She slowly removed the chair and opened the door just a little. Standing outside was a man and a young girl. The man looked strong, but very tired. His clothes were wet and covered in dust and mud. His face was sharp, with deep lines that showed he had lived a hard life. His eyes were serious, always watching. Beside him stood a small girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old. She held his hand tightly. Her hair was wet, and her face looked pale and cold. But her eyes were soft and full of fear. "We won't stay long," the man said. "Just one night. The storm, it's too much for her." Eliza looked at the little girl. The child shivered in the cold wind. For a moment, Eliza said nothing. She looked at her small cabin, her empty table, her little food. Then she looked back at the girl. Without another word, Eliza opened the door wider. "Come in," she said softly. The man nodded, surprised but thankful. "Thank you." They stepped inside quickly as the storm grew stronger behind them. Eliza closed the door and pushed the chair back in place. "Sit near the fire," she said. It was not much of a fire, just a few weak flames, but it was better than nothing. The girl slowly moved closer to it, still holding her father's hand. "What's your name?" Eliza asked gently. "Lily," the girl said in a small voice. Eliza smiled. "That's a pretty name." She turned to the man. "And you?" He paused for a second as if thinking carefully. "Caleb," he finally said. Eliza nodded. "I'm Eliza." There was a short silence. Only the sound of rain filled the room. Eliza took her piece of bread and broke it into smaller parts. She handed one piece to Lily. "It's not much," she said, "but you can have it." Lily looked at her father. Caleb gave a small nod. "Thank you," Lily said, taking the bread. Eliza poured some water into a cup and gave it to them. She didn't have anything else to offer, but she gave what she could. As time passed, the storm continued outside. Inside the cabin, things slowly became calmer. Lily began to relax. She even smiled a little while talking to Eliza. Caleb, however, remained quiet. His eyes often moved toward the door and window, like he was waiting for something, or someone. Eliza noticed this. "You're not just travelers, are you?" she asked quietly. Caleb looked at her, but did not answer. Instead, he said, "We'll leave in the morning. We won't cause you trouble." Eliza didn't push him further. She understood what it meant to carry secrets. Later that night, Lily fell asleep near the fire. Eliza covered her with a thin blanket. Caleb stood by the wall, watching both of them. "Thank you," he said again, his voice lower now. "You didn't have to help us." Eliza shrugged slightly. "Everyone needs help sometimes." Caleb looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to understand her. When Eliza finally went to rest, she closed her eyes slowly, But she did not fall asleep right away. Through half-open eyes, she saw something. Caleb moved quietly across the room. He reached under his coat and pulled out a heavy leather bag. He held it close, then carefully placed it beside him. The bag made a soft but heavy sound when it touched the floor. Too heavy, too important. Eliza's heart began to beat faster again. Who was this man, and what was he hiding? Outside, the storm continued to roar. But inside the small cabin, a different kind of tension had just begun. The storm had passed by morning, but the air still felt heavy. Soft sunlight entered through the cracks of the wooden cabin. The ground outside was wet, and the wind had finally grown quiet. Everything looked calm. But inside Eliza's heart, something was not at peace. She woke up slowly and sat up from her bed. Her eyes quickly moved across the room. Lily was still asleep near the fire, wrapped in the thin blanket. But Caleb was not there. Eliza stood up at once. For a moment, her mind filled with worry. Had he left? Had something gone wrong? She stepped outside the cabin. There, a few steps away, Caleb stood facing the open land. His back was straight, and his eyes were fixed on the horizon. He looked alert, like a man expecting danger at any moment. "You're up early," Eliza said. Caleb turned slightly. "Couldn't sleep much." Eliza nodded, though she could tell it was more than that. "Storm's gone," she said. "You can travel safely now." Caleb didn't answer right away. He looked back at the empty land again, then said quietly, "Maybe." Eliza noticed the hesitation in his voice. Before she could ask anything more, Lily's voice came from inside. "Papa?" Caleb quickly walked back in. Eliza followed. Lily sat up, rubbing her eyes. When she saw Eliza, she smiled. "Good morning," Lily said. Eliza smiled back. "Good morning." She gave Lily a little water and helped her fix her hair. The small girl looked much better now, her fear from last night slowly fading away. While Lily ate the last piece of bread, Eliza watched Caleb from the corner of her eye. He still looked tense. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Eliza asked. "Yes," Caleb replied, "just passing through." Again, his answer felt short, and not fully true. Later that morning, Eliza decided to go into town. She needed to get a few things, and also sell some small items to earn a little money. "I'll be back soon," she told them. Caleb gave a small nod. "We'll be here." Eliza walked along the muddy path toward the town. The place was small and quiet, with only a few shops and people moving around. But today, something felt different. There were more people than usual gathered near the center. Eliza slowed down and listened. Two rough-looking men stood near a post, talking loudly. "Big reward," one of them said. "A rich ranch owner gone missing. Took his daughter with him." The other man nodded. "Name's Caleb Hart. Owns one of the biggest ranches in the West." Eliza's heart skipped a beat. Caleb. She stayed still, listening carefully. "They say he's carrying important papers, and a lot of money," the first man continued. "Anyone who finds him gets paid well." Eliza's hands slowly tightened. Her mind rushed back to last night. The storm, the tired man, the quiet girl, the heavy leather bag. It all started to make sense. She quickly finished her small work and began walking back home, her steps faster now. Her thoughts were full. Was he really that man? Why was he hiding? And who were those men looking for him? When she reached her cabin, she paused at the door. Everything was quiet inside. She slowly pushed the door open. Caleb and Lily were there. Lily was playing with a small piece of wood, drawing shapes on the floor. Caleb stood near the window again. Everything looked normal. But Eliza knew something had changed. "I'm back," she said. Lily smiled. "Eliza!" Caleb turned. "You were gone a while." Eliza placed her small items on the table. Town was busy. She tried to sound normal, but her mind was still racing. Later, while Caleb stepped outside for a moment, Eliza's eyes moved toward the corner of the room. The leather bag, it was still there. This time, it was slightly open. Eliza hesitated. She knew it was wrong to look, but she also knew she needed answers. Slowly, she stepped closer. Her hand moved carefully as she opened the bag just a little more. Inside, she saw it. Stacks of money. Clean, thick bundles. And under them, papers with official stamps and a name clearly written. Caleb Hart. Eliza quickly stepped back. Her breath became faster. It was true. He was not just a traveler. Before she could move away, a voice came from behind her. "You shouldn't touch things that don't belong to you." Eliza turned quickly. Caleb stood in the doorway. His face was different now, No longer tired, no longer weak, his eyes were sharp and serious. For a moment, silence filled the room. Lily looked up, confused by the tension. Eliza swallowed slowly. I didn't mean to. Now you know, Caleb said. His voice was calm, but firm. Eliza nodded. They're looking for you in town. Caleb's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew darker. I figured they would be, he said. Who are they? Eliza asked. Caleb took a slow breath. Men who want what I have. Eliza looked at him carefully. And what do you have? Caleb glanced at the bag. More than they should ever get. The room felt smaller now. He stepped closer. For a moment, Eliza felt fear, but Caleb stopped a few steps away. I won't hurt you, he said quietly. You helped us. I won't forget that. Eliza looked at Lily, who was watching them both. I just want the truth, Eliza said. Caleb looked at his daughter, then back at Eliza. For the first time, he didn't hide. My name is Caleb Hart, he said, and I'm not running from nothing. I'm running from people who are willing to take everything from me. Eliza stood still, her heart heavy with the truth she had just uncovered. Outside, the wind had calmed, but inside that small cabin, something much bigger had just begun. The cabin felt different now. The quiet peace from the night before was gone. In its place, there was tension and truth. Eliza stood near the table, her eyes still fixed on Caleb. Now she knew who he really was. Not just a tired traveler, but a man with power, money, and enemies. Lily sat quietly on the floor, watching both of them. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she could feel the change. You should leave, Eliza said after a moment. If those men are close, this place is not safe. Caleb shook his head slowly. It's already too late for that. Eliza frowned. What do you mean? They don't stop easily, Caleb replied. Once they start looking, they keep going. Eliza's heart tightened. She walked to the window and looked outside. The land was open and empty, but now it didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt exposed. They'll come here, she said quietly. Caleb didn't deny it. For a moment, silence filled the room again. Then Eliza turned back to him. Then we need a plan. Caleb looked at her, surprised. You don't have to be part of this. Eliza crossed her arms slightly. They're already part of my life now. If they find you here, they'll find me too. Caleb said nothing. He could see the truth in her words. Eliza was not just kind. She was brave. Lily slowly stood up and walked to Eliza, holding her hand. Are we in trouble? She asked in a soft voice. Eliza knelt down and smiled gently. No, not if we stay strong. Lily nodded, trusting her. Caleb watched them both, something changing inside him. For a long time, he had trusted no one. But now, things were different. Just then, a distant sound. Horses. Eliza stood up quickly. Did you hear that? Caleb moved fast to the window. Dust was rising far away, and it was getting closer. They found us, he said. Lily held Eliza's hand tighter. Eliza took a deep breath. Then we don't wait. Caleb looked at her. What are you thinking? Eliza pointed toward the back of the cabin. There's a narrow path behind the hills. Most people don't know it. It leads into the old dry valley. Caleb listened carefully. If we go now, Eliza continued, we can hide there, but we need to move before they reach the house. Caleb nodded. Good. He grabbed the leather bag and secured it tightly. Stay close, he told Lily. They moved quickly. Eliza led the way, opening the back door of the cabin. The ground was still wet, making it harder to walk, but they didn't stop. Behind them, the sound of horses grew louder. Faster, Caleb said. They reached the small hill behind the cabin. Eliza pushed aside some dry bushes, revealing a hidden path. This way, she said. They moved down the narrow trail, surrounded by rocks and tall grass. It was difficult to see from a distance, which made it the perfect hiding route. Lily struggled to keep up, but Caleb lifted her into his arms and continued moving. After a few minutes, they reached the dry valley. It was quiet and hidden between large rocks. Eliza stopped. We can stay here for now. They crouched low, catching their breath. From far away, they heard voices. The men had reached the cabin. They're searching, Caleb said quietly. Eliza listened carefully. They won't find this place easily. Caleb looked at her. You know this land well. Eliza gave a small nod. It's the only thing I have. Time passed slowly. The voices in the distance moved around, then slowly faded. But Caleb knew it wasn't over. They'll come back, he said. And next time, they'll be more careful. Eliza looked at him. Then you can't keep running forever. Caleb sighed. I know. For the first time, he looked tired again, but not weak, just honest. I built everything I had from nothing, he said. That ranch, that land, it's not just money, it's my life, and they want to take it. Eliza listened quietly. Then don't let them, she said. Caleb looked at her. Simple words, but strong. Lily rested her head on Caleb's shoulder. I don't want to run anymore, she said softly. Caleb held her closer. Something inside him changed in that moment. Running was no longer the answer. He looked at Eliza again. You helped us when you didn't have to, he said. Why? Eliza thought for a moment. Because I know what it feels like to have no one, she said. Caleb nodded slowly. He understood that. The wind moved gently through the valley. The danger had not passed, but something stronger had formed. Trust. Not complete. Not easy. But real. Caleb stood up. They'll come again, he said. But next time, we won't hide. Eliza stood beside him. Then we stand together, she said. Caleb looked at her, then gave a small nod. For the first time since the storm, he was not alone. And somewhere beyond the hills, the men who were hunting him were already planning their next move. The real fight was still ahead. The sun slowly rose over the dry valley, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and orange. It was calm. Too calm. Eliza stood near the edge of the rocks, looking out toward the open land. Her eyes were sharp, watching every small movement in the distance. Behind her, Caleb sat with Lily. The little girl was still resting, her head gently placed on his shoulder. She looked peaceful, but Caleb knew that peace would not last long. They'll come back, Eliza said quietly. Caleb stood up. Yes. And this time, we don't run. Eliza turned to him. Then we need to be ready. Caleb nodded. His face was calm, but his eyes were strong. He was no longer just a man hiding from danger. He was ready to face it. We go back to the cabin, he said. They expect us to keep running. We surprise them instead. Eliza thought for a moment, then agreed. All right, but we do it carefully. They made their way back through the hidden path. Every step was slow and quiet. The land around them looked empty, but both of them knew they were being watched. When they reached the cabin, everything looked still. The door was slightly open, the place had been searched. They were here, Eliza said. Caleb stepped inside first, checking every corner. The table was moved and a few things were thrown on the floor, but nothing important was taken. They didn't find the bag, Caleb said. Eliza let out a small breath. That's good. Just then, a voice came from outside. So, you came back. Caleb and Eliza turned quickly. 3 men stood near the door, the same rough men from the town. Their leader stepped forward, a slow smile on his face. We knew you wouldn't run forever, Mr. Hart. Lily held Caleb's arm tightly. Caleb stood tall. This ends today. The man laughed softly. It ends when we say it ends. Eliza stepped slightly forward, her voice steady. You're not getting anything from him. The man looked at her with a smirk. And who are you? Someone who's not afraid of you, Eliza replied. For a moment, the air grew tense. Then Caleb spoke. You want the money? The land? You'll have to walk away with nothing. The leader's smile faded. You don't have a choice. But this time, Caleb was ready. He moved quickly, stepping forward with confidence. Eliza stayed beside him, not backing down. The men were surprised. They had expected fear, not resistance. What followed was not chaos, but control. Caleb used his strength and smart moves to keep the men back. Eliza helped by guiding Lily to safety and staying aware of everything around them. The fight was quick but intense. In the end, the men realized they could not win easily. The leader stepped back, breathing hard. He looked at Caleb with anger, but also respect. This isn't over, he said. Caleb met his eyes. It is for today. The men slowly backed away, then turned and left. Silence filled the air again. Eliza let out a long breath. It's done, for now, she said. Caleb nodded. Yes, and next time, they'll think twice. Lily ran to Eliza and hugged her tightly. You were so brave. Eliza smiled and gently held her. So were you. Later that day, the cabin felt different again, not filled with fear, but with strength. Caleb stood near the door, looking out at the land. I can't stay here, he said, but I also can't keep running. Eliza walked up beside him. Then go back. Face everything properly. Caleb looked at her. That's what I plan to do. He paused, then continued. But I don't want to do it alone. Eliza raised an eyebrow slightly. What are you saying? Caleb took a breath. Come with us. Eliza was surprised. Me? Yes, Caleb said. Not as help, not as someone below us, but as someone who already proved her worth. Eliza stayed quiet. I have a ranch, Caleb continued. It needs rebuilding. It needs people who are honest, people like you. Lily smiled brightly. Please come with us, Eliza. Eliza looked around her small cabin, the broken table, the weak walls, the lonely life. Then she looked at Caleb and Lily. Something inside her shifted. All right, she said softly. Lily jumped with joy. Really? Eliza smiled. Yes, really. A few days later, they stood on a hill overlooking a wide, beautiful ranch. Green land stretched far and wide. Horses moved freely in the distance. The place was full of life, but also needed care. This is it, Caleb said. Eliza took a step forward, her eyes wide. She had never seen anything like it. It's amazing, she whispered. Caleb looked at her. And now, it's part of your life too. Eliza smiled gently. For the first time in many years, she felt like she belonged somewhere. The poor girl who once had nothing had found something far greater than money, a place, a purpose, and a new beginning. As the sun set over the ranch, 3 figures stood together, no longer strangers, but something close to family. And this time, the future did not feel empty. It felt full of hope.